Welcome, benvenuto, Hunying, benvenuto. The world is getting ready to be set on fire with the new podcast, Souls of Solidarity, coming to the Mystic 7 Record and Film YouTube channel. We're a show where you, as an independent artist, musician, writer, filmmaker, or producer, can have a voice. Whether it be a book, new music, a film, or script you've written, we're there for you. We will cover major social issues, people in business with heartwarming stories. So join us, grab a drink, a joint, or whatever your fancy, and buckle up with the roller coaster ride of the century. Join us to the journey of the center of entertainment. New independent artists, upcoming filmmakers, new and exciting authors share their voices. Again, join us every Saturday after 8 p.m. for Souls of Solidarity.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Souls of Solidarity. Today, we're going to be having another exciting show, and we're going to continue our jazz series that we started last week, counting down the greatest jazz pianists in history. And so, as we discussed that, I've told you many times that I wanted to talk about jazz pianists and the greatest pianists because I want to continue the tradition of learning jazz history as part of our musical arts and musical show, along with other things, because I feel jazz has become a lost art. And, you know, our people started jazz, and I just feel that the younger crowd needs to learn more about it. So I always tune in to some of those type of things, but we discuss other things. We do hip hop, we do rock, and different things like that. But this week, we're going to talk about our jazz artists, and our countdown to this week will be number 4. And then I want to give a shout out. I noticed you noticed I'm wearing my Warrior hat today. I got to give a shout out to my Warriors because they're doing they're topping the Western Conference, and they've had some serious battles with the Phoenix Suns this past week. And of course, we're still standing with the best record in the Western Conference, or actually in the NBA. And then, of course, you know I'm a big Raider fan, and my Raiders upset Dallas on Thanksgiving, and we hope that they continue that trend of winning, because that's the only way they're going to get into the playoffs. But you know, with the Raiders, I'm excited about the win, but I'm cautious about it because they can look good and like they're ready to roll, and then bam, they break your heart. So my enthusiasm isn't going to be as great with that as opposed to the Warriors, because the Warriors have won championships and know what winning championships are about. But anyway, it's exciting time for Bay Area sports. Even though I'm based out in Southern California, my heart is still in the Bay. So a couple other things I want to touch on before we discuss our topic this week is I want to talk a little bit about the entertainment, art, and news of notes. One is about Carlos Santana. As you know, Carlos, he's hanging up the guitar for the rest of the year while he recovers from a unscheduled heart procedure or heart problem that he's had. And so, you know, the Rock and Roll Hall of Famer, he announced this past Wednesday that he has canceled all his shows for 2021, his 2021 gigs. And then 8 of his shows were at the House of Blues in Vegas. So anyway, speedy recovery, Carlos. We miss you. You know, you've always had my blessings. So get well and bring us that great guitar sound back that we enjoy so much. So everybody give your prayers to Carlos Santana and his speedy recovery. Now, along with some else I want to give a shout out to. My sympathies go out for the wife of music executive Clarence Avant, his wife Jacqueline Avant. She was involved in a home invasion, and catastrophe happened. She was shot and killed in the process of the home invasion. And so I want to give my sympathy and prayers to the family. Clarence Avant, as you know, was the Black Godfather in the music industry and has been known for years in the industry. And so I know he must be devastated right now. So I want to give a prayer, and my sympathies go out to his wife, Jacqueline Avant, of I think they've been together for, I want to say 60 years or so, 65 years, anyway, a long time. So I'm sorry to hear that. That was a sad tragedy, and I hope, once again, I say my prayers go out to the family. And then again, I also want to give a shout out, and my sympathies and prayers go out to Virgil Abloh, a leading designer whose groundbreaking fusions of streetwear and high fashion that has made him one of the leading designers. Yeah, as I said, he was one of the fusions of streetwear and high couture, which made him one of the most celebrated tastemakers in the fashion and beyond. And he died of cancer at the age of 41. Now, Abloh's death was announced last week, Sunday, by the luxury group LVMH, which is Louis Vuitton, Moet Hennessy, and Abloh's his own Off-White label, which he founded in 2013. You know, Abloh, he was one of the artistic directors of the Louis Vuitton menswear, and he had his hand in a lot of the new fashions and designs that came out. Some compared him to Jeff Koons. Others, hailed him as this generation's Karl Lagerfeld. And so our sympathy goes out for Virgil, one of the great upcoming designers, and he's gone too soon. I know he worked a lot with Serena and Venus in the tennis industry, and he did a lot for different labels. So a talent that is just a talent that just went too soon, and we got to enjoy what he brought to us, but it's a shame because we're going to lose the things he could have brought to us. So shout out goes to him. Moving on. I'd like to start our show and talk about our topic, our countdown to the greatest jazz pianists in history. And we're going to start today with number 4 on our list of people who have influenced the jazz game and have become one of the top pianists in the industry. So our number 4 this week. Last week was Oscar Peterson. This week we have a new person who we put up into number 4, and that would be the man himself, Bill Evans. If you don't know of Bill Evans, you will get to know him after I talk about him today. He had a big influence on Miles' album. If you ever heard All Blue, which was created by the Miles, that whole album he did. Bill Evans played all the tunes on that on the piano. Now, he was widely considered to be one of the greatest jazz pianists of all time. Evans' use of harmony and his inventive and impressionistic integration of the jazz repertoire, has few peers. His singing melodic lines have influenced just about every jazz pianist that has followed him. A bold traditionalist with the most delicate of touches, he was never to be found or the fusion end of the jazz spectrum. Now, like I said, if you ever heard some of his albums, the guy is an amazing keyboard player. So we can continue on to talk about him and his accomplishments. William John Evans is what his birth name was. And so he was born August 16th, 1929. And now, like I said, he was a jazz pianist and composer who mostly worked as the leader of a trio. He used the impressionist harmony, interpretation of traditional jazz repertoire, block chords, and trademark rhythmically independent singing melodic lines continues to influence his jazz. He came out of Plainfield, New Jersey. He was classically trained at the Southeastern Louisiana University and the Mann School of Music in New York City, where he majored in composition and received the artist's diploma. As I said, he grew up in North Plain, New Jersey, so he was an Eastern Coast boy. He was the son of Harry and Mary Evans, and his father was of Welsh descent and ran a golf course. His mother was of, now I don't understand this quite. It's called Carpatho Rusin ancestry. Now, I'm not familiar with that. I haven't really researched that ancestry. So anyway, that was what I found on the research. And they were descendants of from a family of coal miners on his mother's side. Their marriage was started because of his father's heavy drinking, gambling, and abuse. Now, Bill had a brother, Harold, they called him, who was 2 years his senior, to whom he was close. Now, given Harry Evans Sr.'s destructive character, Mary Evans, the wife, she often left home with her sons to go to nearby Somerville to stay with her sister. And they were called the Epps family. Anyway, there, Harry began piano lessons somewhere between age 5 and 7 with local teacher Helen Leland. Bill was taught to be too young for lessons, but he began to play with what he had heard during his brothers, and soon both were taking piano lessons. So his brother Harry started first, but Bill's the one who really embraced it and decided to take it to another level. Now, Evans remembered Leland with affection for not insisting on a heavy technical approach with scales and arpeggios. Now, if you want scales, for those of you who don't know music, scales are what they use based on the 88 keys of the piano. So like in a C scale, you'd have C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and then C again. And it would repeat itself every 8 steps or every 8 tones. In a chromatic scales, there's 12 steps. But, and then arpeggios are nothing more than a chord, let's say C, E, and G. So if you were to do like bum 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 bum, those are arpeggios. Bum 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 bum. You do that on the guitar a lot. You do it on the piano a lot. Saxophone players do it. They're almost like triplets, but they usually hit the third tone of a chord. Little theory there, just so that you understand what I'm saying. So anyway, Bill, he quickly developed a fluent sight reading ability, but Leland considered Harry a better pianist, his brother. So at the age of 7, Bill began violin lessons and soon also flute and piccolo. He soon dropped those instruments, but it's believed they later influenced his keyboard style. He later named Mozart, Beethoven, Schubert as composers whose work he often played. During high school, Evans came in contact with the 20th century music likes of Stravinsky and Petrushka, which he called a tremendous experience, and Mulhall's Suite Provençale, whose bitonal language he believed opened him to new things. Around the same time, he came his first exposure to jazz. When age 12, he heard Tommy Dorsey and Harry James bands on the radio. So at the age of 13, Bill stood in for a sick pianist in Buddy Valentino's rehearsal band, where Harry was already playing the trumpet. Soon, though, he began to perform for dances and weddings throughout New Jersey, playing music like boogie woogie and polkas for $1 per hour, which back then, which today is nothing. But, when you have a love of something, you don't think about the money right away. I mean, the money will follow, depending on your passion and how long you stick to it. But, around that time, that's what he made. And then he met multi-instrumentalist Don Elliott, with whom he later recorded. Now, another important influence was bassist George Platt, who introduced Evans to the theory of harmony. So Evans, he listened to Earl Father Hines, Coleman Hawkins, Bud Powell, George Shearing, Stan Getz, Nat King Cole, among others. He particularly admired Cole. Evans attended when he went to high school, he graduated in 46 there in North Plainfield High School. So then after that, he went and had a stint in the Army. Evans was discharged from the Army in January of 1954 and entered a period of seclusion triggered by the harsh criticism he had received. He took a sabbatical year, lived with his parents, where he set up a studio, acquired a grand piano, and worked on his technique. Believing he lacked the natural fluency of other musicians, he visited his brother, who was now in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and recently married, working as a conservatory teacher. Now, the thing I want to say about musicians, if you want to be a truly great musician, if that is your thing, you need to listen to other people, not just one instrumentalist. Listen to several. Listen to sax players. Listen to trumpet players. Listen to guitar players, bass players. They all have intricacies in how they play and develop and design their music, and so you can learn from those different intricacies. Because I listen to Miles a lot, because I thought, Miles always was took his music to a different spectrum, and I took some of his intricacies and stuff and incorporated it into guitar playing. In fact, there's a few songs I did back in the day, Solar by Miles and All's Blue and stuff like that. But, I use those intricacies of that music to be able to stretch my music horizon. And that's what makes you a great player over time, is being able to listen to other people and learn. That's how you get great. It's not about just one person listening to one type of thing all the time. You have to expand yourself. So anyway, Bill Evans, after all that, he went back to New York. In 1955, he moved there, where he worked with band leader and theorist George Russell. And then in July of 55, upon his return to New York, he enrolled in the Man's College of Music, where he worked for 3 semesters, postgraduate course in music composition. Again, he wanted to expand. He felt he wasn't good enough, so he wanted to expand his musical knowledge in order to be great. And that's what sometimes it takes. So he also wrote classical settings of poems by William Blake, along with his studies. Evans played in low-profile tuxedo gigs at the Friendship Club and the Roseland Ballroom, as well as the Jewish weddings, intermission spots, and over 40 dances. So later, better opportunities arose for him, such as playing solo opposite to the modern jazz quartet at the Village Vanguard, where one day he saw Miles Davis. This is where he came in, listening to him. During that period, Evans also met Thelonious Monk. And if anybody, we're going to talk about Thelonious Monk later, but some of his complex harmonies and things are amazing. And if you listen to some of Ray Charles, you'll hear some of that complex stuff. So in 58, Evans went and joined Miles Davis, his sextet, which in 1959 then immersed in modal jazz. And if you want to, modal jazz is simply the different church tones that they use in scales, that's another topic we'd have to get into at a later date. But anyway, that's where he recorded Kind of Blue. And that's was one of the best-selling jazz albums ever. And if you ever get a chance to listen to it, it's a great album. It's on one of my best album lists that I like to listen to. Now, in 1958, Evans recorded with Cannonball Adderley, which, if you know Cannonball Adderley, he was another great jazz musician, cutting the first version of Nardis, specifically written by Miles Davis for the Portrait of Cannonball album. It would be associated with Evans for much of the rest of his career. Despite having so much success, or perhaps because of it, Evans was seeing a psychiatrist, unsure whether to continue with his career. We go through some mental issues sometimes, and we're not sure. We question ourselves a lot, I think, in life. And so sometimes we have to see people in order to put those questions into a path to help you navigate your path. And so anyway, he went and did that. But after a period at his parents' house, his parents' home in Florida, he returned to New York to record once again. In late 1959, Evans left the Miles Davis band and began his career as a leader with bassist Scott LaFaro and drummer Paul Motian, a group now regarded as a seminal modern jazz trio. In '61, 2 albums were recorded as an engagement of New York's Village Vanguard Jazz Club. Sunday at the Village Vanguard, which was a good album. If you have a chance, check it out. And Waltz for Debbie. A complete set of the Vanguard recordings of 3 CDs was issued decades later, so you can get it. However, there's nothing like that old vinyl. That old vinyl was nice, but you got to have a diamond tip to play it right. Anyway, moving on. However, 10 days later, after that booking ended, LaFaro died in a car accident. After months of seclusion, Evans reemerged with a new trio featuring bassist Chuck Israel. Now, people don't know that when you know, in this music industry, musicians are very creative people, and especially if they're composers and writers. So they need that alone time to where they can concentrate on their music and figure it out. So if you ever wonder why a musician comes out and he plays and they have a hit record or something, and then bam, you don't hear from him for another year, it's because usually he's putting his next frontier of music together to bring out for people, because that's what we do as musicians. You know, we go into hiding for a while, and because our creative process is being done, and we're trying to put out the next best thing. Now, in 1963, Conversations with Myself, which featured Evans playing not one, but three pianos. This Grammy Award-winning record was revolutionary at the time. In that, Evans recorded, by overdubbing, three different yet beautifully interwoven piano pieces for each track. And if you're in the recording industry, you understand what overdubbing is. It's taking one track and then putting something on top of it and on top of another track, and then you blend it. I did that in a new song I just wrote recently, Carnival. I did 4 guitars that I overdubbed parts on. Anyway, many of Evans' compositions, such as Waltz for Debbie, have become standards. They've played and recorded by many artists. Evans received 31 Grammy nominations, 7 awards, and was inducted into the Downbeat Jazz Hall of Fame. Among the other highlights of his Verb recordings, which Verb we talked about with Oscar Peterson and some of the other jazz artists, was one of the top jazz labels during the 50s and 60s and 70s, which a lot of artists recorded with. But his so then further Conversations with Myself, which along with 2 live albums, Bill Evans at the Town Hall and Bill Evans at the Montrose Jazz Festival, or a couple other albums he did, for which he also won Grammys. Now, one of the 7 that he won from 31 nominations, Evans, while never embracing fusion of the avant-garde in any way, was always keen to explore something different, as his 1965 album, Bill Evans Trio with Symphony Orchestra, with Klaus Orgelmann conducting, so beautifully demonstrates his ability in terms of what that song was about. So anyway, this man was a great pianist, and that's why we chose him number 4 for this week's series on our countdown of the greatest jazz pianists. Now, our next show, we'll move on to number 3. As I said, we used to give them all on the same show, but I felt it was an injustice because we weren't really talking about the artist himself, and I wanted to give more influx into the artist, his history, how he became who he became, so that you can understand him as a person, because I think it'll help appreciate his music much better. So, once again, that was our topic for this week. So, if you have any thoughts about our topics, like I said, we covered, and you'd like to share your thoughts, give us your questions or reach us at Mystic 7 Records at, Twitter. You can Twitter us or follow us on Instagram. And like I said, I'll be doing more stuff on Instagram, Mystic 7 Records at Instagram. and myself, RaDante Keys, at Instagram. You can get me. Additionally, you can go to our website, www.mystic7records.com, and check out our links, for any shows that you've missed and stuff. Now, I also want you to hit the subscribe button and become a part of the family, because like I said, we're going to be discussing a lot of music, literature, and arts. And occasionally I talk sports because I happen to love sports. And I will talk about my teams, but we're not a sports show. So anyway, if you hear me talking about the Raiders or the Warriors, those are my teams. Okay. And if you want to talk about the Lakers or the Dodgers, so you have to come on the show and wear your gear and talk about them real quick. But we're not a sports show. We're a music and arts and literature show. So anyway, join us again on our next episode of Souls of Solidarity, where we're going to take you on the journey to the center of entertainment. And I hope you enjoyed our discussion today about Bill Evans and some of the things that he did. Go out and listen to some of his music. Go on YouTube and listen to some of his music. He's one of the greats, one of the jazz greats. So, once again, I want to leave you with the 3 words that I always leave you with every week. My love for you, prosperity, solidarity. I'm out. And I want you to hear the sounds of Bill Evans as we fade out. Thank you.
She's